So good evening, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Esther. We are your host for tonight as we talk matters mental wellness for men. I know this is a topic that has not been discussed so much, but we decided it is important for us to get into this. And as we delve into this, I saw Elvis on the call. Elvis, you can unmute and pray for us kindly.
Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you because of this session that we're going to be having. I pray, God, that you will minister to us. I pray that you minister to our emotions, minister to our minds. And we pray that at the end of it all, we will become better people and that we will have better mental health. We pray for speakers. Give them the words to tell us. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. As we continue to admit others, you're hosted by Conversations with Esther. Conversations with Esther is a media platform that speaks to the workspace and speaks to the needs in the workspace now. The needs in the workspace is mental health, it is the culture of environments and the rest. So we will continue to speak to this, and we are open and have candid conversations in everything we do. So I will kick this off with some information around here on mental wellness. Now, we host what we call fireside chats every Wednesday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And that's where we are today. So we only have 1 hour to do this. Hope we can cover a lot of information that we have. The webinar is, as I said, men and mental health. World Health Organization is an says that mental health is an integral and essential component of health. The World Health Organization Constitution states that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. An important implication of this definition is that mental health is more than just the absence of mental disorders or disabilities. Mental health is a state of being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Now, mental health is fundamental to our collective and individual ability as humans to think, emote, interact with each other, earn a living, and enjoy life. On this basis, the promotion, protection, and restoration of mental health, sorry for that, I think, yeah, of mental health. On this basis, the promotion, protection, and restoration of mental health can be regarded as a vital concern of individuals, communities, and societies throughout the world. Now, how are men affected by mental health? This includes irritability, sudden anger, increased loss of control, risk-taking, and aggression. Men may also be more likely to use alcohol and drugs to cope with their depression rather than talking about it. They may use escapist behavior too, such as throwing themselves into work. Now, why is men's mental health not taken seriously? Men may not talk about mental health issues due to stigma, shame, and societal expectations. Men are often raised from a young age to be tough and unemotional, which can make it difficult for them to seek help. Traditionally, our society has positioned men as strong, privileged, and the breadwinners, so having a perceived disadvantage such as mental illness makes them seem weak or unmanly. I saw an article on the Business Daily, that's an article by Rosemary Gathara, address stigma hampering mental health wellness, and this is what it says. Access to mental health care remains unequal according to the World Federation for Mental Health. In low and middle income nations, 75 to 95% of people with mental health conditions have no access to the right care at all. This is further compounded by the fact that mental health, especially in the African context, is a subject often discussed in hushed tones due to the stigma and discrimination attached to it. In Kenya, the Ministry of Health estimates that 1 in every 4 Kenyans, that is about 11.5 million people, live with a mental health condition. Various papers presented at the first annual Moral Injury Symposium held under the auspices of the Nairobi Hospital in 2019 pointed out that a good number of doctors and other healthcare providers are also battling mental illness, further compounding interventions that are being put in place. Now, finally, depression is among the most common mental illness globally, affecting more than 1.9 million people in Kenya alone. In the past decade, cases of suicide in the country have risen at an alarming rate of 58%, with data showing that more men are likely to die through suicide than women. Now, we go back to our conversation. So where are men in this? And I know on the panel, we have our guests. We have Danish Odongo. Danish is a true story of recovery. I know we've worked for years with Danish, all the way from his young stage, and he's a person that we really admire. His story is a true testimony. So Danish will be sharing with us his story. We also have Patrick from Chiromo. Chiromo are our partners in this, and Danish as well is a partner in this. So I will give it over to Danish so that we can be able to save time. Danish, over to you. I know you have a story to tell. You will tell us as it is, how you went through it, and your recovery journey as we go on. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Esther. I'm used to calling you my pastor, but today allow me to address you with your official professional name. My name is Danish Odongo. I'm a Kenyan, born and raised in the village of Kisumu, started working in Nairobi, and my journey with mental health begins where I was born. So, of course, I was raised in just an ordinary family like all of us. When I moved to Nairobi, I hawked my CV at the Kenya Assemblies of God Buruburu for many, many months. Ultimately, one of the elders called Elder Hamala referred me to a job at Stigma, where I got my first official job when I was 20 years old. I became a sales person. And then I grew up within a span of 5 years. I was the regional marketing officer. I was barely 25 then. The regional marketing officer for Western Kenya region. I was managing a portfolio of almost 10,000 members of Stigma Sacco. Kericho all the way to Isebania border, all the way to Busia border. That was my territory, And of course, I was on a very right trajectory. I was sitting in board meetings. I was doing a lot of stuff. But that's when I started noticing that I wasn't your typical employee, because first of all, I got bored very easily. And then I kept on asking, is there more to this job than sales? Is there more to this job than marketing? I felt like I really wanted to do something that was a bit more profound. So hold the pin there, because then a few while long, that story will make sense. Then I moved to Capital FM, where I became a reporter, of course, a journalist, and I did a fantastic job. I did not have a qualification in media. When I left Stigma Sacco, I'm the one who brought Capital FM to Stigma Sacco. Then I jumped ship and I went to Stigma Sacco. I went to Capital FM. That's now when I really started to struggle. I would be late for work. I really would struggle with the meaning of my job. I would wonder, we were required to file like about 3 stories per day. I found these stories to be mundane, he said, she said, but everyone else enjoyed it. And I used to complain a lot, that I realized that I was being very negative. My sleep patterns were affected. Everything around my life, I felt like was sinking, And so March of 2018, I resigned, left Capital FM. And then the December of that year, now I say that this straw that broke the camel's back finally happened. I wasn't able to sleep for 3 months. I wasn't able to sleep well for 3 months. So I was struggling with sleep. I was having nightmares. I was having like a whole lot of issues going on. Then one day, I passed by Upper Hill Medical Center, and that's where I met Dr. Frank Njenga. Believe me, I did not know much about Dr. Frank Njenga before the 17th of December 2018. Of course, he welcomed me in very well, and then we went through a psychological tests and stuff, and that's when I first got a diagnosis called attention deficiency hyperactive disorder. And I did not know anything about that. Before that day, I did not know anything about ADHD. Of course, I thought it was a white man's problem. I was a typical African male. I did not believe in crying. I did not believe in seeking help for mental health services. I thought it was for the weak. I'm being very honest, you know. But then Dr. Njenga really was very charming and very convincing. So he sent me materials I love to read. I used to read a lot. So all these materials he sent me, I started reading, and I read and I read and I read. By the time I was arriving home, I was living in Rwaka then. I was convinced that really I needed help. And so the next day when I went back to the hospital, Dr. Njenga suggested that because of my sleep issues, I may need to be checked into a facility. They could find out what was going on. That's how I ended up at the Chiromo Lane Medical Center in Bustani, a fantastic place. And so when I went in now, that's when I realized that my problem wasn't just mental, that my life really was, you know, sometimes we feel like when we talk about mental health, it's like a standalone thing, that everything else is different, your mind is also different. But when I started doing therapy, I realized that my relationship was in a terrible place. I was really hurting deeply from a breakup that had just happened a while back, and that thing had gone on for like about 3 years. Somebody had dated well, had even taken home. I was hoping that we'd cross and get married, and then it ended. So I did not know that this was impacting my mental health. But because also I'd been in a job that I did not find fulfilling for a while, that really had a huge toll on my mind. And I'm grateful by that. I need to really give a big shout out to our HR at Capital FM. Her name was Mary Muriga. Mary Muriga would sit me down endlessly. In fact, I remember many times I handed in a resignation letter, and she told me, "The Danish, just hold on." And during that time, when she was told me to hold on, that's when I had, like, I'd say, the biggest explosion of my career. I had a show on KTN News. I wrote extensively for President Uhuru Kenyatta, for the Deputy President Ruto, for all these big people. I worked on Kenya's Eurobond case with Dr. Kamau Thuge, was the PS then. If she did not see beyond my pain then and just allowed my resignation and said, just go home, I don't think I'd have had that sort of career. Of course, I also worked with Evans Kidero as a writer in 2017 and much more. So back to this admission. So when we were doing unpacking, all these things, I was learning them when I was now in the therapy room. That's when I discovered that I grew up in a very violent home. So my father was very violent towards my mom. I did not know that all these things were affecting me. So I'd see them fight when I was very young. Also, we grew up in a family that wasn't rich. We were really poor and surviving. All these things were affecting me. That's when I also realized that in my lineage, in my family, there were traces of people struggling with mental health. So then it made all sense why my genetics, the money issue, the relationship, and my career eventually ended up affecting my mind extensively the way it affects everyone else. So that's the first myth I want to bust, that it doesn't matter where you come from. You might say that, oh, by there, I grew up in a poor home, I used to go to school barefoot, or, I'm like this, the way men like to, do all this sort of stuff. But those things can affect your mental health. Degree might differ, because for me, I had a predisposition because I come from a family where we have had issues with mental health. I remember in 1990, I had an uncle who was showing psychotic symptoms, but then I realized that ultimately this was also a family thing. Then, of course, I left the hospital. I felt so alive. I was on medication, antidepressants. I started doing ADHD medication, and my life completely changed. My head before therapy was like a construction site, but for the first time after therapy, my mind went quiet, my sleep returned, and then I started rebuilding my life. And so in 2019, when I left the hospital, I I'd want to say here that if it wasn't for my faith really in God, that thing would have completely destroyed me, because when I was looking back at the impulsive decisions I'd made that led me to very bad spaces. I was looking at opportunities that I'd missed because of this undiagnosed mental health condition. I was looking at the potential that could have been, and it wasn't. And I was diagnosed when I was 30 years old, So I was looking at my life. But then in that moment, I also started looking at the future, that what if I was diagnosed at 50? What if I was diagnosed at 60? What if I was diagnosed at 70? And I really felt grateful to God that my life, that he had mercy on me to show me this thing at 30. And so my life completely changed from a political commentator, a journalist, and somebody who had built career in the media. My life completely changed, and I went into the mental health space. 2019, I wrote my first book, Unbreakable, a story of resilience and finding beauty in depression. Multiple parents and families called me to go and talk to their sons and their daughters, and I worked with many of them who had psychosis, from Karen to Kariobangi, from high-end places. I've worked with multiple families trying to help their sons and their daughters to find help. That's now the second part of this story. So finding purpose in this depression. And then courtesy of our church, which is the Kenya Assemblies of God Buruburu, they supported me to do what we call the Unbreakable Worship Experience in 2019. We brought in Paul Clement from Tanzania, who came, and we brought in psychologists, Chiromo, our partners, and they actually partly sponsored the event. And we had over 1,000 people attend a worship service on a Sunday afternoon. And we were just saying that, and Pastor Elvis actually did the sermon, and the sermon was really looking at depression from a biblical lens and saying that, yes, this is a spiritual thing, but also spiritual things can be cured professionally using professional help. That's how we brought Chiromo and the group. And then my book sold extensively. I sold over 1,000 copies, went into all the mainstream media houses. I talked extensively. And then after that, then my life completely changed, and I became a person who's doing a lot of work on mental health. Part 3. Then the government noticed. When the government noticed, they called me into this work. We were called the Suicide Prevention Technical Working Group, where I was a member, where we developed the suicide prevention strategy on 2021 to 2026. If you come back to this list, never in my mind did I think that I'd ever share, of course, a place. Just my names are here. So my name is Danish Odongo is here, but here we have Professor Lukoya Tuoli, we have Dr. Masi Karanja, Dr. Simon Juguna, we had World Health Organization, Ministry of Health represented, and for a period of 6 months, we met extensively to develop this document, which was launched by Dr. Amok. And then also in 2019, the Mental Health and Wellbeing Task Force invited us to do presentations, and I led the youth bit of it, where we really made a case to tell people that most of young people who are struggling with mental health issues are struggling with mental health issues, not just because of their genetics, but also because of lack of opportunities. So a young person who's unemployed, you might give them antidepressant, but if you don't give them jobs, then the antidepressant might not help them. So I made a very strong case of building what we call a multidisciplinary approach to mental health in this document. Then last but not least, the Kenya Mental Health Investment Case. This is the final document that we worked on, where really the mental health space in Kenya, nobody had done a mathematics to look at how much money are we losing on mental health related issues, and how much can we gain if we were to invest on it. And this is where now my passion really came. Because we live in a very capitalistic society where whenever you say we need to invest in mental health, people are asking you, what are we going to get from it? So let me tell you what we're going to get from it. So annually, we lose about 62.2 billion per year. 5.5 billion is the direct cost of treating mental health disorders, and 56.5 is indirect, which is mostly workforce and economic productivity costs. So 56.5. So if you are an employer and you're saying, oh, by the way, I will not invest in a robust mental health for my employees, you will be contributing to the 56.5 billion shillings that is lost per year. And that's now where I learned what I'm passionate about. So in 2020, during the height of COVID, I realized that I was doing a lot of work on mental health. I was talking to civil society spaces. I was in government task force. I was in the private sector space, really being called to talk about this thing. And that's when I realized that my passion really was now to change people's lives. And I registered a nonprofit called the Wellness Tribe in November 2020. And 2021, we got our first funding from the Ford Foundation, where we did work targeting 450 young people from 9 constituencies in Nairobi. And as we speak right now, we are doing a lot more work now, looking at what we can do in the corporate world. And why am I passionate about the corporate world as the final string that will connect this story? I spent 10 years of my life in the corporate world, first employed as a regional marketing officer at Stigma, and secondly as a journalist at Capital FM. So I spent from my 20 to 30, I was actually employed in the corporate world. And I realized that a lot of emphasis is put on what we call absenteeism at work. But nobody talks about presenteeism, where you're at work, but you're not up 100%. Because the problem with how we see wellness in the corporate world, we see wellness from a sick leave perspective, and sickness is very narrow. So whether you're coughing, you have this ailment that can be treated, that can be taken into a lab, and you can see a virus, a bacteria. But depression is a bit different. It's nuanced. It can be somebody who lost a loved one in the office, but they're still dealing with the grief, and they've not let go of the grief for 2 years. You're not seeing, you're wondering, why is this employee slacking? Or it could be a young person who's struggling with alcohol. They're coming to work and they're having an alcohol use disorder. You're seeing, maybe you're not actively, you're not actively being involved. And therefore, so our work really at the Wellness Tribe is to help organizations equip their young professionals strictly from the ages of 18 and 35 to deal with 4 issues of their lives. One are relationships. Within 18 and 20 and 35, that's where many of us get some very severe heartbreaks, and you think that will not have an effect on output. But remember, when you, as a result-oriented person, the way I am, when my relationship fails, I take it personally and I say that I'm a failure. I could have done more, and that will affect other areas of my life. Then we also have money issues. This is where I got into debt extensively in that part of my life, where we borrow sometimes to impress people who are not, we don't need to impress. That's why we make bad financial decisions. Sometimes we take mortgages that are out of our league. Sometimes we don't even have like financial counselors. So at the Wellness Tribe, we bring all this together to support people to thrive. And then career growth. Many of us get into employment and nobody teaches us how to navigate. How do you negotiate for your salary? How do you defend yourself in the workplace? How do you learn about policies and rules and workplace opportunities that can enable you to do? Because many of us, we spend so much time in our workplaces that if that workplace is not productive, healthy for our mental health and for our growth, even if we don't find meaning in these jobs that we do, then we're going to waste a huge part of our lives. And then last but not least is our health. And I'm very passionate about this because your physical health will affect your emotional health. Your emotional health will affect your physical health. I used to have so many problems when I was employed. I would have stomach issues, which I later realized that were signs of anxiety. But then I would be put on many types of medications. Since I started doing therapy, psychotherapy, I can tell you that my stomach problems are not there anymore. I've not taken any medication on my stomach for the last, since 2018, December till today. But before that, I was being diagnosed with ulcers, with all this. I used to have severe headaches, which have considerably reduced. Right now, I only feel headaches when I am unwell. My sleep patterns were terrible. I would have nightmares and I would have sometimes light sleep. That has considerably improved. So within these 4 things, when we put together money, career, relationships, and health, then we are equipping now organizations with the skills to thrive. And with those many remarks, I think my presentation is done. I'll be open for questions later after my other colleague has done a presentation. Back to you, Esther.
Wow. Thanks, Danish. Now, I listened to you, and being a HR professional, I am thinking about absenteeism, and I realized a few weeks ago when I was checking on this, that we think that, you see, there's absenteeism, and there are people that are present physically, but mentally they are not at work. Hence, a lot of accidents in the workplace, especially if you are in manufacturing. Then I think the HR professionals need to understand that you can have people in the workplace physically, but mentally they are not there. So what would you say to HR professionals who are, I think we are very quick to discipline people. We are very quick to
Yeah.
discipline people that did not show up and wait until it's 2 or 3 days and we call it absconding. So what would you tell the HR professionals or even the bosses, employers in the room?
Let me say this, that an American survey found out that presentism, which is what you're describing, there's a 1.5 times higher cost than absenteeism. 38 days of productivity are lost per year because of this. And in the American world, they say that 150 billion US dollars is lost per year because of presentism. People who are at work. We've not calculated, for example, a friend of mine who works a lot with doctors is talking about how medical negligence, a huge part of it can be attributed to this, where a medical employee is suffering from burnout, they're suffering from grief, they're dealing with emotional issues. Scalpels are left in people's stomachs. Medical negligence happens. So think about the cost of that life. Now think about now in productivity. Now let's come back to people who are employees, but they are on the road driving. Accidents.
Yeah.
Think about that. And I haven't told you that according to Gender and Equality Commission, Kenya loses 68 billion shillings per year to cases related to sexual gender-based violence. Those are litigation costs, productivity lost, and stuff like that. And therefore, what I'd like to say to the HR professionals and employers that we have is that I know we have inherited a very, and I'm sorry, I'll just say it openly, I know we've inherited a very colonial way of managing people, Nyapara system, where I'm the boss and you are the, but the world is now showing us that empathy and compassion and investing in people produces more results. We shouldn't look at what we call, we shouldn't be in a very either or type of mentality that it's either this or that. It can be both. It can be that we can provide comprehensive wellness services to our employees, and that can be a cost that we see, but the benefits of it would be much more. And I'd like to tell the HR and the employers who are here, try it only 1 year. And the shareholders and the board will actually say that increase this cost of wellness, because they will see such productivity that have increased in the most incredible way. And we're going to just have a hugely happier nation. When we have a happier nation, it's going to be good for everybody else. But if you have an angry employee, he'll be an angry father, an angry mother, an angry colleague, an angry citizen, an angry church member. So the whole thing will trickle down to every part of society. But if we empower them more, then we're going to have a lovely community that is thriving and well. Yeah, that's what I like to say.
Wow. You remind me of our previous conversation. I think that was last week. We had a webinar on toxicity. Now, toxicity is big in the workplace, and it's really an issue that's bringing these mental issues in the workplace. When the bosses are toxic or your manager is toxic, they don't trust you. You're bullied, you sorry, you are just pushed left, right, center. And bosses that are just filled with power. Let me just say it as you're saying, that they really harass people and they think that running over people really works. So I think if you're a boss here, please just make sure that the culture and the workplace environment is conducive enough for your people to work. Now we are at 7:35. I know 1 hour is pretty short. Allow me to bring in Patrick. Patrick is our partner from Chiromo. We are working closely with Chiromo. We had Chiromo actually last week as well, as we discussed the CEO's perspective on toxicity. Because then, looking at what is called the iceberg of ignorance, Danish says that the top management just knows 4% of what goes on in the organization. 96% is not within their reach. So the toxicity that trickles down, sometimes either they know and assume, or they have no idea about it. So Patrick, welcome and talk to us. Tell us, you've listened to Danish. Danish has talked about absenteeism, talked about heartbreaks. I know there are people here in relationships and and it didn't go well, and it's not easy to get out of it. Debt management, bad financial decisions, career growth, and many other issues. As an expert from Chiromo, what's your advice? What's your advice to me as an individual, Esther is a HR, or Esther is an employer, or wherever we are working in our spaces, in our families? I know there are ladies that are in the call, and most of them told me, Esther, please allow us to come so that we are able to also help our family members. And I see we are 78 on the call. That's a very good number. So talk to us, Patrick. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Danish, for that powerful presentation and life experience. So my name is Patrick Nyagudi. I'm a clinical psychologist at Chiromo Hospital Group. Currently, we are having 5 branches, and I'm stationed in the Mombasa branch, I think the farthest end. So we are really trying to bring mental wellness across the nation. So just to pick on what Danish has said, there are people that will suffer mental health issue because of something that in the current Kenya we say character development. You're in this relationship, ukaachwa. Saa zingine tunasema ukiachwa, achika. Others will cling to this kind of relationships. Others will struggle because of maybe environmental factors. The home environment is not conducive. And thank you, Esther, for allowing the ladies to join in. At times, men suffer mental health issues because the home environment is very toxic. You get home, you have a nagging wife. Your children are there asking, when will we get school fees? Or I need this new outfit. Then it so happens, umeingia nyumbani, then the tokens pia zinakukaribisha. So as a man, you really find challenge balancing between your life, work life, and even your social life. So I will be sharing a slide, some slides in a few, so that we are able to follow through. So I promise not to take more than 20 minutes, so that we are able to discuss 1 or 2. So as Chiromo Hospital Group, we believe that our patients or our clients are the most important people. So on the screen that you're seeing, I hope you're able to see my screen.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Thank you. The topmost screen, the one which is a story building, that is the Bustani in Lavington. That's where Danish was. Then it's followed by another one still in Lavington, that is the Braeside. Then the lower photos, we have Muthithi in Westlands, and the mother of them all, the Westlands branch, where Chiromo Lane began. Then the youngest of them all is the Nyali branch, where I'm stationed. So as a group of hospitals, we believe that people have dignity. So we want to provide dignified, quality mental health care in Africa. So any person that comes to our branches, they will experience the dignity. And our mission is to pursue excellence as we deliver mental health services, and we adhere to evidence. So anything that we do within Chiromo has some scientific backing. The core values are respect, honesty, innovation, and reliability. And we usually tell our patients, we want you to recover in dignity. So as you come to Chiromo, you are home away from home. I will ask a very quick question. What do you see on your screen currently? Maybe Esther, you can allow maybe 1 or 2 men to comment.
Yes, please. They can, and they can as well use the chat box. I'll be,
Yes.
I'm looking at that as well. So what do you see on your screen?
On the screen currently, yes.
Yes. Anyone
Maybe,
can chat or, yeah?
or I can call out, because
Yes, you can.
we want to speak out. So maybe
A stressed man,
Nicodemus.
I can see people are chatting.
Aha,
I can
yes.
see wanaume tunaambiwa tufungue roho. I see a stressed man, a confused and being hit on the back, men and mental health, mental confusion and maybe pain, a man lost in thoughts. Yeah, my mental health first, someone who is burdened, stressed, sadness, and mtu wako na mambo mingi. I think they're streaming in furiously.
They are streaming in.
Yeah.
So let's keep on referring back to this slide. So all these things that we are commenting on the chart, these are things that men go through. And that's the reality on the ground. We go through a lot of issues. But where do we offload? Where do we go for help? More often than not, a man will be pained, a man will be broken, they run to the bar. So they talk through the alcohol. So on top of a problem, you are adding more problems. So in the years of my practice, most of the men that come in, they either come in with alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder. Then when you look underlying, there is depression. So we usually want to ask, which one comes first? Is it the depression or is it the alcohol use disorder? So more often than not, the depression comes first. So they tend to self-medicate using alcohol because alcohol is something that will calm them down. So chances are they might sink deeper into substance use disorders. Some statistics, most mental health issues start by the age of 14. Yet, more go undetected or untreated. And as Danish was talking, the condition that he talked about, ADHD, maybe when he was young, the parents never noticed. It only came up when now he was an adult. And there's statistic that also Esther you gave, which is very valid, that more people will struggle with mental health issue without knowing, and the percentage is too high. So when we look at a staggering 1 in every 4, so currently I'm seeing we are around 84. So you can imagine out of the 84, if you do the math, around 21 of us struggle with a mental health issue. As Danish also said, mental health issues do not choose your social status. It doesn't choose if you're rich, if you're poor, male or female. So it cuts across. And we have iconic people. Winston Churchill, Isaac Newton. These people had issues with their moods, so they had bipolar. Abraham Lincoln suffered clinical depression. Richard Branson, who is a person who is very well known in terms of creating wealth, is dyslexic. Our own Dennis Ombachi, who plays rugby and he's a roaming chef, he struggles with bipolar. And recently, one of the politicians came clean that I struggle with a mental health issue. That is Rachel Shebesh. So it's not a secret anymore. It's nothing that we need to have undertones talking about mental wellness. So as the tag Tufunguke, we need to open up so that we understand that having a mental health issue is not like a death sentence.
True.
When we look at the burden across the globe, men struggle with mental health issues. And when we look at suicide, for example, more men complete suicide than women because the kind of methods men take are very lethal. So when a man tells you that I'm going to die by suicide or I'm going to attempt suicide, then take this man seriously. It's not seeking attention. They are crying out for help. Suicide rates are high. We look at the statistic in men than in women. It's unfortunate that high-income economies have 3 times more likely to die by suicide than men. Now we are looking at the men in the high-end countries. I think Kenya, we are headed there, and we need to be keen on our mental wellness. So like in Australia, they say 6 men die by suicide every day. So you can imagine that kind of statistics. And 82 men attempt or have thoughts of suicide. So you can imagine out of 100, 82% have thoughts or attempts, 6% complete each day. So when we look at the Kenyan situation, the story is not any different because of the pressure we have currently. The economy is not behaving the way we expect it to behave. So men are going through pressure that is too intense for them. So what is causing a disparity that men don't want to seek treatment? The stigma that when you go to see a psychologist or when you go to see a psychiatrist, you are termed as weak. So we need to change this conversation from you are a weak man when you seek help. When you seek help, apparently, you are a very strong man. So we need to destigmatize mental illnesses. And the culture also brings in a lot of issues, whereby when you feel sad, someone tells you man up or men don't cry. And when we say that men don't cry, ni kama tunatoa Mungu makosa, because he gave us these emotions that we are supposed to express. So if you feel like crying, I will talk to men. If you feel like crying, it is okay to cry. And to the ladies who are on the call, if your man is crying, don't term him as weak. He's just expressing himself. Another cause of disparity is the low social support, whereby we assume that men need to handle or they ought to handle their challenges by themselves. If I'm allowed, if we go back to the creation story, God saw that Adam was not complete, so he gave him a helper. So why was God giving him a helper? So that he's able to share out the challenges that he's going through. So it is okay for a man to share their issues without feeling they're less of a man. Another cause of disparity is men tend not to seek help. So our help-seeking behavior is wanting. So it is important that we seek help when we need to seek help. When you feel like your body is giving you signs that things are not okay, go for that help. And I usually give an example with our mobile phones. If your mobile phone gets to 15%, what do we usually do? Esther, when your phone gets to 15%, what do you usually do? Esther, are you on the call?
Yes, sorry, I recharge. Definitely. I go and charge it.
Yeah.
I don't even wait for 15, Patrick.
Yes.
50%. Mine doesn't go below that.
50%, you're already looking for your charger, you're looking for your power bank.
Yes.
And we just need to observe people getting into a restaurant. The first thing they look, I want to sit at a place where there's a charging port, so that my phone does not go off. So the question is, if you can take care of your phone in that way, why can't you take care of your mental wellness in the same way? Then we also talked about toxic masculinity, is whereby the culture says that we must be strong. We are brought up saying that men ought to be strong and they need not to speak out. The more you keep quiet, the more likelihood, the statistics that we've seen, that men die by suicide is going to increase. So what causes maybe mental health issues? Because mental health issues begin from a point of stress. If your stress levels are not taken care of, it escalates. You start experiencing anxiety, you start experiencing negative emotions, then what happens? You might end up slipping into depression. And Esther, thank you for giving a very good definition of mental health. It's not the presence or the absence of illness. So if you're not able to cope with normal daily stresses, if you're not fruitful, if you're not productive, and if you're not contributing to the society, then we'll say that you have a poor mental health. And it all begins from the level of stress. So this is what will cause a man stress, his identity. Maybe you're working very hard in your organization. You are known by this title, CEO or managing director, or you're the HR for that matter. So you live by that identity. What happens when you retire or when you lose your job? Where will you get that identity? Other causes of stress will be substance and alcohol use. Many people refute that use of alcohol is a mental health issue. I'll tell you for free, it is a mental health issue because now you're dealing with the reward system, and the reward system is all in the brain. So once that reward system has not been hit, chances of you getting addicted is very, very high. Then relationship and marriage dynamics will also cause men a lot of stress. Most men won't talk about their challenges. Maybe I don't have money for this. So you are constantly working yourself out to ensure that your relationship and your marriage is working without seeking help. Fatherhood also comes with its own challenges. You're in this relationship, no one has taught you how to become a father. Now you're a father, now you're a parent, you're an employee, maybe at times you're an employer. So all these changes comes with a lot of challenges to men. Finances, I think this one usually tops the list, whereby you have loans here and there, you've taken bank loans. If that is not enough, you've gone to the likes of Zenka or Okash. So you are constantly in debt. So most men fall into debt, and this causes them a lot of stress. And as the society constantly says that men are the breadwinners, it brings a lot of family dynamics. So you're a man in your family, you're a man where you are born, you are a man where you're married, or your nuclear family where you are the head, where you are a son. So constantly demands come your way, and more often than not, because you've not been taught how to say no, you constantly want to please people, and this really impacts negatively on your mental well-being. Then there are invisible wounds, maybe childhood experiences. You were bullied when you were young. You experience your parents fighting, as Danish was telling us. Maybe you lacked certain basic needs. So these are the kind of invisible wounds that men go through. Even women still go through the same, but men tend not to speak about their wounds. I'll give my own personal experience whereby my dad, I guess he might be on the call. He usually says that when you see Patrick ask for help, jua amefika mwisho. So these are some of the things, even as a practitioner, I struggle a lot asking for help, but because I'm already in the practice, when I get to my breaking point, I just say that enough is enough, I need help. So people have different coping mechanisms to deal with mental health issues. There are those which are maladaptive, there are those which are adaptive. So when we are talking about maladaptive coping mechanisms, these are coping mechanisms that are more negative. So you have behavioral disengagement. Now you start withdrawing. You start pulling out. And as Danish was telling us about his own personal experience, as a person who has high energy, You want to quit your job today, you want to get to another job tomorrow. So you have some behavioral disengagement. Others will deny that they are sick or they're having an issue. Others will have self-distractions. So you are experiencing, maybe you want something high adrenaline. So you engage in risky behaviors. So you want just to feel that pain, or you want to let that pain out. But the more you want to let it out, you are destroying yourself. Others will blame themselves that it is my fault that I'm struggling with a mental health issue. At times, it's not your fault. As Danish mentioned, there are those that are genetic. You are just predisposed genetically. There are those that will be caused by the environment where you work. If you have a toxic work environment, chances are you're going to develop a mental health issue. Others will resort to using drugs or substances just to calm that negative symptoms that come with mental health issues. Others will vent, and when we are talking venting, they might lash out to others. They might get aggressive to others. So those are maladaptive ways that people cope with stresses. The adaptive ways is active coping, maybe seeking help, or being intentional about your condition by just speaking out that this is what I'm struggling with. When you see me exhibit such symptoms, kindly help me out. And Danish, when you reached out, I know your therapist constantly tells you, monitor your triggers. That is active coping. Then instrumental support, seeking help through therapy or through medical help, then you're able to have adaptive coping mechanism. Planning. Now, people that struggle with mental health issues might lose routine. So once you have routine, it will keep you on check. So if you see you're going off your routine, then know that things are not okay. Acceptance, which is the opposite of denial, accepting that, yes, there's a problem. As men, accepting defeat could be the first road to recovery. So seeking also emotional support through therapy, through spiritual therapy, because therapy goes a wide scope. So getting that emotional support, having someone that you trust, someone who is not going to judge you, to support you emotionally. Having a sense of humor is also another way of coping with mental health issues. Just ensuring that you're able to have fun. And here I will talk about positive fun, because there are people that assume that engaging in substance use and alcohol is having fun. Yes, it will start as fun, then it will end up in funeral. So if you spell the word fun, it's F-U-N, then when you spell funeral, it starts with F-U-N, then you add E-R-A-L. So have a good sense of humor, which is positive. Positive reframing, or positively reaffirming yourself that things are going to be well, will also help you to cope with matters health, mental health. Last but not least, religion. Many people will resort to religion as a way of coping with mental health issues. And so long as the doctrines being taught in this religious organization are sound, then chances are you will get a bit of relief. And when we're looking at religious approach, we don't neglect medical approach. So we combine both religious and medical approach because the two go hand in hand. So how can we enhance good mental health among men? We just need to normalize the conversation around mental health. We need to create such spaces like the one that Esther has created, so that men are able to talk both within the workspace and the community level. Isikue that when a man is sharing about their struggles, we start judging them that labda huyu amekaliwa ama vitu kama hizo. So we need to create safe spaces within the workspace and the community. Discrediting the myth that men should be in control. It's okay not to be in control. So once we allow ourselves to know that there are things that are beyond our control, we are able to seek help. And acknowledging that it is okay not to be okay. So no, we are not usually at our 100% mark all the time. There are times that will be below 50%. There are times that will be at 25%. There are times that will be at 75%. So just acknowledging when we are not okay will also help us to enhance our mental wellness. Social support is also key. Finding someone you trust, someone who is ready to listen. And listening here is listening even to those things that you're not speaking about. And asking for help, not going it alone. And I use our disciplined forces. Anytime you see a policeman or a soldier who is armed, they walk in pairs. So what does that tell us? That asking for help is not a sign of weakness. And the support that you get from someone who is close to you really helps you. And it takes us to this cliche that a problem shared is halfway solved. So get that person that you trust to share this. Have an open conversation with your spouse or your partner about the challenges you're facing. So most men will, they'd rather talk to their drinking buddies about their challenges at home rather than direct these family matters with their spouses or their partners. So I'd encourage men to constantly share their challenges with their spouses, be it you're experiencing challenges in the workplace or within the society. Just share it out, because women usually have a way of getting us help. Allow yourself to be vulnerable to friends and the people you trust. This lack of vulnerability is what is killing most men, and most men are sinking into depression. Then, because I know I'm talking to employers and potential employers, we encourage work-life balance, whereby we prioritize in a scale of urgency and importance. There are things that are urgent and important. We need to prioritize that. There are things that you can delegate. Please delegate. Don't die with all the work, because you die with all the work, the company will continue, but you will be normal. Communicate the challenges that you're having at the workplace, because there are policies that are being put in place to ensure that the wellness of the employees is top of the priority, because minus you and I, then these organizations won't stand. So when we talk about communicating the challenges, we are going to reduce the chances of absenteeism and the presenteeism, whereby you are there but you are not there. Clocking off or setting boundaries between work life and personal life, not carrying work home and not carrying home to work. That is exactly what you are talking about, setting boundaries between your work life and your personal life. Because if you don't know how to separate the two, chances are they are going to overlap, and one aspect of your life is going to suffer. And more likely, it's your personal life that is going to suffer, because you want to be in the good books with the HR, you want to get that paycheck at the end of the month. So it is important to know, this is where my life begins, this is where my work life begins. Last but not least is taking care of yourself, because we usually say there is no health without mental health. So taking care of your physical health is key. Getting enough sleep. And if any one of us here is sleeping less than 6 hours, there's a problem. If you're sleeping more than 9 hours, there's a problem. If you're not sleeping at all, like Danish mentioned that he didn't sleep for 3 months, then there's a very big problem. You need to seek help. Another way of taking care of your physical health is keeping physically active, which helps to decompress. So even in your busy schedules, find time to do exercise, find time to take care of your physical activity, so that You are not all work without play. Then practice mindfulness, which helps to relieve stress. As you walk, engage with nature. And nature has a way of helping with our mental wellness. So when are we supposed to ask for help? Anytime you notice that your mood is changing, either you're too hyper or you feel like your energies are too low, this is high time that you sought help. And how will you know that you're having a mood change? If you feel low for 2 weeks consecutive, constantly you're feeling your mood are on the low, it's high time that you checked, either you checked in for therapy or to a psychiatrist. Or you find yourself you're having very elevated moods, you are constantly on the high, then chances are you could be struggling with a mental health issue, and it's important that you go for check and for assessment. When there's difference in your work performance, either you are now underperforming, or on the contrary, you are overperforming based on a given period of time. There are people that they are average in their performance, but when they get an episode, I will use bipolar for example. When someone is on the manic episode, that is the elevated mood, they tend to overwork. So these are people that we need to really take care of them before they get to the breaking point. Someone that is depressed now, their performance goes low. So it is important for us to be able to know when to seek help. And when you feel extreme feelings of sadness and hopelessness, this is a classical symptom of depression. And if not taken care of, the sadness and the hopelessness coupled with worthlessness, this is what leads to people start thinking of suicide and eventually attempting and even completing. Then there's loss of pleasure, informally pleasurable experiences. Again, when you lose interest in things that you loved doing, then this is a red flag that you need to really take keen interest. When you start getting physical symptoms such as unexplained headaches, stomach issues, unexplained fatigue, it is important that you start seeking help, because there are some headaches that you'll go to a general doctor. Maybe they do a full hemogram, they do some tests, then they tell you that you're okay. Then these are headaches that could be a sign of stress or burnout. When you find yourself using substances in excess, I will clarify what excess means, especially with regards to alcohol. When you find yourself per sitting, you are taking more than 2 bottles of beer, that is a problem that you need to seek help. People that smoke, maybe they smoke like 5 sticks of cigarette in a day. When they increase the intake, maybe they are now smoking 10, or they go to an extent of smoking a whole packet, there's a problem that needs to be sorted out. Or they start exhibiting other behaviors like maybe gambling or other addictions like sex addiction, pornography addiction. These are things that we need to really red flag and seek help. It is important as men to remember that mental illness is not a sign of weakness. And if we are taking mental illness as a sign of weakness, then even when you suffer malaria, then we need to qualify that as a weakness. So mental illness is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is a sign of strength. So when you are in need, just reach out. One more thing for us to remember, you are not alone in this struggle. There are so many people that struggle with mental health issues and they are seeking help. If you walk into any mental wellness facility, you will find that most of the admissions are men. Reason being, we constantly want to hold our issues in without sharing them out. So I want to encourage men that we are not alone in this struggle. Just reach out so that you get the necessary help. The one in red, be in your mate's corner. So watch your partner's back. So for the men who are on the call, just watch the other man's back. In that, when you notice there are some patterns which are changing, just reach out and ask them, how are you? Or what's going on in your life? Maybe that question will be able to really let things out, and this man is going to get better. So let us not stop at good morning, then good morning, or how are you? I'm good, or I'm okay. Interrogate more when you notice there is some changes in a man's way of behaving. I saw in the chat someone asking about our contacts. So there's a toll-free number that you can call anytime, and a psychologist will be ready to help out. That is 0800 220 000. It's toll-free, so 24 hours, 365. There's always someone ready to walk with you, journey with you, as a man, as a woman, and as a member of this great nation, so that we make Kenya great again, regardless of the circumstances or the situations we are going through. We can still talk about our mental wellness and get help. Back to you, Esther.
Wow. It's amazing. It's amazing. I think I don't know whether I should really talk after this or we should just Danish, I've seen you responding to quite a number of the chats. If I may just go to the chats a little bit, but I think he's responded to most of them. But I see the problem with Africans is that we manage health issues so mechanically, just like we most drive our cars to the point that they cannot move anymore. That is when we take it to the mechanic. Same way we use our bodies to a point that it can't allow us to move anymore. Any society in Kenya where we have registrations for psychologists, counseling, and related mental health, maybe you can answer that on the chat, Patrick. I see someone else. I suggest more of such webinars with low-level social groupings so that more people can get this invaluable information. What is the most effective way to advise a person with mental issues who have repulsive attitude? I see Danish, I think, answered that. He said, get as much information as possible before you advise them, have compassion and empathy as you do it, but refer them to a professional psychologist and psychiatrist for long-lasting solution. Do men suffer from postpartum? Danish said yes, but theirs is called paternal postnatal depression. Are the signs the same as mothers? For men, from Danish, says they experience symptoms of depression, but only 10% of men experience this. Anger, irritability, working all the time, feeling frustrated, sad, hopelessness, and overwhelmed. At Patrick, from Simon. Simon joins us usually every other Wednesday from Tanzania. Thank you, Simon. Most men have failed their best leadership because of lacking involvement or consulting. Do you think mental health will be the solution to them to improve their leadership? I think you can answer that in the interest of time. I know we are 15 minutes past time. Patrick.
Well, can I answer verbally?
Yes, please.
Instead
It's
of-
okay. It's
All
fine.
right. So, Simon Frank from TZ, thank you for that question. So the moment we figure out our mental space, then chances are we are going to get to a point of being good leaders. So we just need to allow ourselves to know, where am I today? So we live in the moment. We don't live the remaining part of 2023 today. We just live in the moment. Am I in a good space today? If you're not in a good space, then seek help. If you're not in a good space as a leader, it is okay to seek help. Even the HRs here, Esther included, if you're not in a good space as a HR, you're going to make decisions that are going to cost someone maybe their livelihood, just because you're not in a good mental space. So it is okay for people to consult, people to just go for therapy, even if you're feeling okay. At times, people might be very much okay to a point of now not being okay. Look at the late Wanjiru. He won this athletics money. What happened next?
Yeah.
He died. And the Ministry of Sports currently is really putting people to task, especially our athletes, to have financial management coaches, to have their psychologists on board, so that in case you win, you know how to deal with it. In case you lose, again, you know how to deal with it. So it is okay to seek help when you're okay and when you're also not okay. Thank you, Frank, for that question.
Thank you, Patrick. I see Danish has answered most of the others on the alcohol use, and he says alcohol is not a solution. So I know we can go on, and as we continue, you're hosted by Conversations with Esther. So feel free to follow us to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Conversations with Esther Katiba, and to follow me on LinkedIn, Esther Katiba. Well, Danish, I see we're 8:18, almost 20 minutes past. We can't finish this, guys. We just can't finish this, but I just want to say this. Thank you to every man in the room. And before you leave, I will give Danish and Patrick just a minute each to give us their parting shot. Then I will make one announcement and we leave. Over to you,
All right.
Danish.
Thank you so much, Esther, and for everyone who's come here to listen to us speak, thank you so much. I'd just like to say that only 10% of men are gonna reach the severe stage where they will need medication, admission. These are global statistics. Many of you will just require this thing as a life skill. Do therapy as a life skill. The way you'd have a coach for your career, have a coach for your mental health. Work out. Just do it for your benefit. I usually use this example that if you're driving a vehicle, you don't do regular servicing, that vehicle might be moving. That vehicle is costing you a lot. And that vehicle might not be moving as fast as if you serviced it. And last but not least, my high school teacher, geography is here. And Madam Merab, thank you so much for your support always. Yeah, she's asking, I went to a school called Lela Secondary School, and she's saying she wishes some of these things teachers were told much earlier on so that they can be able to help students. I'm happy. I do corporate talks, I do training, I do conversations, and follow Manspective. We have a YouTube channel called Manspective where we talk about men and mental health issues. It's on YouTube. Check out the conversations. Our target audience are between the ages of 18 and 35. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Patrick.
To the men on the call, let's just seek help. I think that is the most important thing, to seek help at the right time. Before things go south, just seek help. There is help available. There are qualified psychotherapists, there are qualified mental health workers who are willing to work with you round the clock. And having had the COVID pandemic that has changed the space, we can even do telepsychiatry. So don't feel like you just need to walk to a consultation room, you can walk to a e-consultation room and get services. So don't shy away from seeking help. It is a sign of strength. Thank you very much for hosting this candid conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick and Danish. And I'm seeing people asking whether you offer this services. Absolutely. Conversations with Esther is a platform that brings together professionals and professional bodies to help you in your workplace and in your personal lives. Feel free to talk to Patrick and feel free to talk to Danish. We do not keep resources to ourselves. We make sure that you're well. And thank you to every man in the room. Thank you for making time, and we hope this has changed you. Next week, allow me to say this, next week, May 17th, we will have Wamama Tufunguke. We will have women in the room speaking. We have dealt with the CEOs, we have dealt with the men, and we will deal with the women in the next week. And the next week, the other following week, we will have children. So if you're a parent, keep an eye on that. Thank you very much. Allow me to end this and say thank you on behalf of Conversations with Esther, and follow us on our YouTube channel. We will post this on our YouTube channel tomorrow so that you can share it and share it. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on that button. Asanteni sana and have a good evening. God bless you. You're free to leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you too.